Okay, so topic number 1 for today is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
Okay.
So, just impressions. Have you guys been playing it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been playing it with my kids. They stopped playing Minecraft for a minute to actually play some multiplayer on it. And
really?
The game is mean.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is.
The game is mean.
It's tough.
I liked it. I mean, I like it. It's cool. As you guys know, I'm a bigger fan of the Mario franchise than of the Donkey Kong Country games. I always felt
Sure.
like Donkey Kong feels so heavy and the game is a little loose. But man, Retro really knows how to make a game that feels like a Rare game. That's for sure, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
It
They
looks
totally know that.
good. I do think it actually feels good. Feels better than the old games to me. And I just love all the stuff that goes on in the background.
You think it feels better than the old Donkey Kong Country games?
I did not like the Super NES, like the feel of the way
Thank
Donkey
you.
Kong handles.
Thank
yeah.
you.
It seems so like slippery and heavy and like weird, like because he's like this wide and he jumps on tiny little things this narrow and like you accidentally always get killed by something that's like tiny.
Yeah.
Shouldn't kill you,
Yeah.
Like Greg jumping on Fran.
So
Exactly.
do you-
We would both
Greg,
die.
yeah.
How do your kids like the multiplayer? Because I know, I mean, we grew up playing very different games than
Yeah.
they did.
They like it. It can be really frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Like it's easy to because especially since some of the levels are so fast, right? All like the kind of the chase and the minecart levels. Like sometimes the second player can be left behind, especially if you're doing something like, oh, hold on, let me stop for this one thing, and then boom, the platform falls and they're gone, right? Like it can be very frustrating, but luckily they have that whole mechanic where you can roll on one guy, like you can run on one guy, or you can like share the seat of the rhino, like that kind of stuff. I thought was pretty thoughtful, so it helps, yeah. But it is fun. It's just mayhem, right? And like, it's not that punishing that you can't use continues or anything. So it's
Yeah,
having fun.
I was talking about this before, but one of the things I really liked about the Rayman games is that they throw lives out the window. I feel like platformers should just do that. Like, there's really no reason because you're starting from the beginning of the level no matter what anyway. I'm not really in love with this game, and this is the first. Jose and I have been in a war over this because he will not.
Lives have been lost.
Lives have been lost. That's why we got to get rid of
Game.
lives. He really loves it, and I think it's just okay. And I put a lot of time into Donkey Kong Country Returns, the one that came out 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm the same way with you guys. I wasn't totally wild about the Donkey Kong Country games for Super Nintendo. I feel like when they all came out, I loved them, and I was like, oh man, this is great. But looking back, like a few months or a few years later, they didn't age as well as like Super Mario World did or something like that. Which is kind of like, that happened with a lot of the sort of pre-rendered digitized games that happened back then. Like if you look at Street Fighter 2 versus Mortal Kombat 2, like put those games side by side, Street Fighter 2 looks so much better, like even today. And Mortal Kombat 2 just looks like a bunch of like failed background actors.
And back then it looked amazing.
I know.
but now it's like-
So real.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So I mean, that's sort of a testament to the realistic graphics war that still happens now. But I like what they're doing with the art in the game. I think the level design's beautiful. Like it's all over the map, even though it's not really frozen. It's called Tropical Freeze, and there's like you don't get to ice until like World 7.
Yeah. But they're like,
There's
it's the
elements.
penguins and the walrus and everything. Like the enemies are
Right,
all
but
like
they're kinda
frost
at-
themes, and they got that big horn.
They're kind of out of place though. They're like at a beach.
Well, that's the whole point, right?
I guess.
Like,
Yeah.
You know what? You don't like it because you didn't understand the story.
Oh, the
See,
story.
You see, the whole point is that they freeze the tropics.
No, I saw the story. The story begins with these 4 hideous-looking monkeys sitting at a table, this rickety-looking table, and Donkey Kong's got this
what they
birthday
do.
cake with a banana on top, and they're all like, "Ah!" And then all of a sudden this like snowflake comes in, freezes the cake, and they're like, "Ah!" That's the story.
Yeah.
That's the whole story. And they're
Can
like, we
you-
gotta go, ah! And they run out there.
You can't imagine yourself as one of the apes and how shocked you would be. if
Yes,
your
I
cake
guess-
froze
penguins came out of
guess so.
nowhere.
from one single snowflake.
I guess so.
Why,
yeah.
when you're a kid and they're selling you kid stuff, is Tropics always such a big gain? You know, they always have
Yeah.
like the Tropic sodas and the Tropic drinks, and then you get like fruit snacks that were Tropic shapes.
I
I
it's
always
so
wonder
weird,
if
right?
like people in Hawaii are like, this is boring.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to play tropics.
Yeah.
Right? Like, well, because it's nice and warm and awesome and vacation and everything.
Yep.
right?
I guess,
Like,
yeah.
But so you're not in love with it, and you didn't really explain why.
So
Like,
I'll tell you
He
why.
hates the story. It's a
Yeah,
bad
that's-
yeah,
narrative.
that can't be it.
No, it's not the story because the story in every Mario game is terrible. It's like, there's a party, the cake's gone too. That's
Why
it. That's
why is it always cakes
I
in
don't
these
know.
games?
I would never
Ask
eat a cake in a Nintendo
Nintendo.
game.
Yeah.
If my best friend in the world was like, come over to this Nintendo game and eat a cake with me, I'd be like, no, it's full of rats and poison. Forget that.
The game or the cake?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything, Greg. Never sleep. Here's one of those things. It's like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze would be one of those games that if the Wii U had the libraries that its competitors do, it would be another notch in the belt. And you'd be like, this is really great.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, it's sort of the game that you need to play for the next 3 months. And I don't think it works as that. I think it's something that immediately pushes away a lot of people, including me. And I've been playing platformers my entire life, but I find it to be incredibly difficult, frustratingly so. I find the checkpoints are way too far apart. The boss fights go on for like 40 minutes. And they're not fun. Like, for me to get through 10 levels in a row, I'm rewarded with a boss fight. And I'm probably getting hell from our audience right now. They're like, oh, you're a baby.
You don't like the boss fights?
I don't. I really do not
That's
like
so
the boss
weird.
fights.
Yeah, see,
No.
I'm really enjoying playing the game, and
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
the difficulty, and it's awesome. And there's something about difficult platformers that I just like. This is great, but I agree with him with the boss fights, where it's like they're imaginative and all that stuff. But like, I hate the fact that you almost can't win the first time.
Right.
Like, you need to play them multiple times, and when the boss fights last like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
That's true. They're long, but it just kind of reminds me of Metroid Prime, right? Like, that's like the one element where I'm like, oh yeah, these are the people that made Metroid Prime, right? Like, the inventive kind of phases that the bosses go through. Like, you think you're like, oh, I know what to do. It's like 3 hits and he's down. It's like, wait a second, I hit him 3 times, and then like they change the pattern completely. I really dig
Sure.
that. I think that's
Metroid
cool.
Prime, though, I mean, you could go in with like 9 energy tanks stacked up and be like, all right, if this guy's going to take
Yeah.
a long time, so am I.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, Jose showed me, because one of the cool things the game does is it lets you upload your speedruns, and you can actually check leaderboards within the game, which is pretty awesome. It's like, I've never seen Nintendo do stuff like that. So, he showed me speedruns of the boss fights, and he's like, these boss fights don't last forever. They only last 2 minutes. I'm like, yeah, if you're literally perfect. Like, if you're the best guy in the world, I mean, I could show anybody a speedrun of a game and be like, you know, this can be beaten in 2 minutes if you're the best guy in the world at it. But it's not that easy. And the problem is, if you die 3/4 of the way in, you have to start the entire
That's
thing
the
over.
worst.
Yeah, and
that's-
that's what
yeah.
that is my problem. Is like the 20-minute boss fight is awesome, but give us some checkpoints in the
Yep.
Yeah, no, I
in the
can see that.
phases. And like, I get that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, just be better, or like, you know, it's part
Yeah,
of it. But it's
yeah.
like, no, it's just, it's not fun anymore to just do the same thing. It's like, I get this pattern, I can nail this. This is super easy. Why am I doing it again?
That was
Yeah,
the
so-
thing, like with like Link Between Worlds, right? Like the final boss battle of that was very like I'm not gonna tell what it was or who it was, but I mean there was phases to it,
Yep.
and I died a bunch every
Yeah.
time I'd get to the new phases figured out, but it wasn't like it was that long to get back to that.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
and
I
it
didn't feel
rewards you,
frustrated,
right?
yeah.
Like it kind of like brings you along to each step, and it's not like and then you die, and it's like 30 minutes back in
Yeah.
time.
See, it's funny though, because this reminds me of the old Donkey Kong Country games,
Yeah.
where instead of it being about the boss, the save points were in such weird places where,
Yeah,
especially in the later worlds, you'd have to beat like 5 levels in a row
Mm-hmm.
to be able to save. And if you beat 4 levels and you lose on the 5th, you have to replay all 5 of those super long levels.
Yeah,
but even then, like, that was different because you're playing through the whole level, and that's like, this is just a boss.
that was also like 45 years ago, so
Yeah.
you could be like, oh, this is acceptable because most games are like this. now,
To be
you know?
fair, I mean, they changed that overall setup, right? Like, this game is way more forgiving when it comes to, like, unlocking levels.
Yeah.
And, like, you're not losing all your unlocked levels when you die. and
You don't
all
lose
that,
any.
right?
Like, it's
yeah.
save after each level.
So they did do that. No, I can see, and maybe I'm not as far as you guys, you know, and playing with my kids, obviously. So
Stupid
everything
idiot
takes
kids.
a little longer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you this actually about that. Did your kids get it right off the bat?
Yeah.
Like, right off the bat, they were
They
like, I
played-
understand the mechanics
They
of this
played
game.
the last one. On
Oh, they played the
3DS,
last one?
so, yeah.
Because I feel like this one didn't really do a good job of explaining everything. It was sort of just like, hey, you hit the ground running, like
Yeah.
literally, and you have to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah, the only elements they didn't. I mean, I think they were at first confused, like what elements can break and you can destroy, right? Like it takes a couple of levels to go, like, oh, you pound on that, you
Yep.
pull on that.
Yeah.
But I thought the game did a pretty good job at teaching you that.
Yep.
The stuff that they were good at in the last one, like jumping off the second player, like you have to kind of relearn, like everything feels slightly
yeah.
different.
I'm really happy there's none of the, like, shake to roll
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
the blowing on the stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's, I mean,
this feels more like the original ones, and I actually really like the original ones more so than it seems like you guys did. I'm still a Mario guy, and you're right. Like, Donkey Kong feels floaty. It kind of feels like Sonic and stuff, where
Yep.
it's like, these are great games, but they're not Mario. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
feels-
that's maybe it. Why, right? Like they came out. I played them very close together. So I'm like playing Super Mario World, then I played DKC, and I'm like,
Yep.
wow, this looks amazing, right? Like the first time I saw it, like, the graphics, I'm like, wow, how did they do this?
Yeah, it's
just like,
really
you know,
beautiful.
I looked at it, I'm like, this is like a Pixar movie if they were Pixar movies. Back then.
That's
Yeah.
with DKC 2 though. Like that game to me is the only one I can look back on and be like, this is one of the best games. Like I love this game,
Mm-hmm.
and it was because the style of it and just the game design was so good.
Yeah, it was really
where
cool.
It taught you like as you played that there's secrets everywhere, and you'd eventually start to learn to look for the secrets. It's like you begin the level, you know to look left before you go right.
Yep.
Like it's these things that just get embedded in your mind, and this game is really smart about that. And
Yeah.
like it brings back all of those things, and the art style like of the levels is so cool to me. Where the world one, there's in the intro video you see like a plane. And it like crashes, and that's kind of a theme throughout the whole world. Where as you go through level to level, there's like
Planes
hints.
keep crashing.
There's just a bunch of different
think so,
planes,
yeah. Pieces,
but
right?
you just keep kind of going through all the different like plane stuff, and then you get to that minecart level, and it's like, oh, it's a minecart Donkey Kong level, and all of a sudden there's a giant saw behind you, and it's just cool. I like how it feels like every level actually leads into the next one. So.
Yeah, my theory is that it's actually the same island as in Tomb Raider. So like they're going to try to leave with a helicopter in the end, and they just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like,
It's a good theory.
yeah.
I actually really like the minecart levels because they feel like that sort of Twitch-based platforming that I came to grow up like learning from Donkey Kong Country games, whereas some of the other levels feel a little more trial and error for me. And I think like the Twitch-based stuff works because you're jumping on the fly, but the other levels, like sometimes I had a tough time differentiating between the foreground and the background. There's this weird mechanic where you have to hold a button to hold a vine, and it's also holding a button to pick up an item or ground pound or throw. And a lot of the things are mapped to like the same buttons. And I played with the gamepad. I know some other people played with the Pro controller, so it might have been easier for them. But I found myself kind of struggling at the beginning with stuff like that. I got better and better with it as it went on, but it's weird. There's like people despise the minecart levels. I actually think they're
I
pretty
really
cool.
like them
Oh,
too.
yeah.
It is, but in 2-player it can be super frustrating because
Yeah.
everybody has jump
wow.
controls, right? Like my daughter and I was like,
Were you yelling jump at the same time?
No, like you just
3,
get frustrated.
2, jump.
And then like you fall into a hole and you're like, and she's like, sorry.
Yep.
You know, like,
You're like, you're ruining my fun.
yeah.
Go to your room.
This is my game.
Dad, it's 4:30. Go to your room.